Well, we're in the middle of many battles, but we're winning. I want you to think about this. Competing systems. That's what reformation produces. When there's a move of God, the system, let's take the medieval Catholic Church, has a reformation, and the whole Protestant church and its multiple factions came out of that collision. Even with Trump in the United States, he rises up, he fragments essentially the old Republican Party and creates two parties out of it. The old school, dead Ahabs that compromised with Jezebel in Washington, and then the new dynamic, viral, let's just say the masculine strength of America is recovered with its martial vigor in Donald Trump in the Republican Party through him. These divisions happen in the economics too. Look at how Rumble has had to rise up. By the way, you want to watch us on Rumble because you won't always see me on these other platforms because I'm so suppressed. It's pathetic. I'm so suppressed. It's depressing. But Rumble, rise. Look at X with Elon. That's an act of God. That the guy, he lost money and picked up X, and he moved the intelligence community off. Now Tucker gets fired from Fox, finds a home with Elon Musk, and now he's over there in Russia. He's going to land this interview with Putin we're all going to hear about, and then the left is going to lose their brains over it because he's actually talking like a journalist to other people. And all of this is great news, my friend. Now, we have businesses like the man I'm going to interview right now, Glenn Story. Glenn Story is a co-founder of and CEO of Patriot Mobile. Patriot Mobile is an unashamed conservative and Christian mobile cell phone company. But what I love about it is it takes a percentage of its income and puts it back into conservative causes. If you're tired of seeing your money used against you, you can actually vote with this cell phone bill you've got. Go to lancewallnau.com/Patriot Mobile. lancewallnau.com/Patriot Mobile. It's WALLNAU. And use the promo code LANCE, LANCE, and you're going to get free activation, free consultation. They'll switch you over to Patriot Mobile. You won't have any interruption in service. Bam. And from now on, you know that your bill is you're paying is going to go help conservative causes. I think they've given over $4 million to the causes you care about. And I can't wait for you to meet him. I want you guys to get to know Glenn Story, CEO and founder of Patriot Mobile. I've seen you on several platforms, but it's the first time we've had you in the studio. Thanks for coming in and joining us. And I'm curious about something. You decided that you were going to be an out of the closet conservative. People know where you're standing. So many people in business will not do that as a business decision. What shaped your desire to be able to do something like that?
It didn't come naturally, to be blunt. I mean, we were a political-based phone company many, many years ago. And before I go there, I just want to say thank you. This has been a great experience sitting here learning about what you guys are doing and being a part of your movement. I love that, and thank you for having us. But anyway, we were purely a political company at one time, meaning, we were selling cell phone service. We were targeting Republicans, and our business was growing somewhere in the neighborhood of about 40% a year. And one of my board members walked in. I'll never forget it. This guy's a man of not a great deal of words, but when he speaks, it's just incredibly powerful. And he walks in, and he sat down and says, "Glenn, I got to tell you this. You're doing everything right, but you don't put God first in your business." And I was like, okay. He goes, "You got great growth, but put God first. You live as a Christian, go to church, you worship, you do everything." I said, "All right." And he left. Now, mind you, this guy's I look up to him. He's a mentor. He prints 2 million Bibles a year and distributes them across Eastern Europe and around that area. And he walked out, and I'll never forget, I leaned back in my chair. I looked out the window, and I thought about, instead of mobilizing conservatives as our tagline, how about America's only Christian conservative cell phone company? So I immediately called my chairman, and I said, "Brian, what do you think?" And he goes, "Glenn, I love it. Do it. Let's do it today." And so within a few minutes, I, started quite a movement within our
Wow.
office. We put God first.
So how long ago was this?
This was about 3.5 years ago. Now I got to show you this. Our growth rate was right here.
Right.
When we put God first, it went like this. We were up 111% that year. The next year, 80. The next year, 50. I mean, we're having a bigger and better year every year, and it is 100% due to putting Him first in our business.
So technically, what did you do differently? So you were a Christian, so you obviously weren't doing human sacrifice. I mean, you were already practicing, right? So what did you do that was overtly, other than letting people know you're a Christian? Was that basically it?
Well, when you let somebody know you're Christian, you stand on the corner and say, "Hey, I believe that Jesus He's in control of our business. He's a steward. I mean, He's the leader. We're the stewards of His business." It makes a change. It really makes you look at things differently. Now, I'm not going to say anything bad, but we've changed some of our labor force, some of our policies, and the blessings have been immense. I look at it, I say, manna from heaven.
Mm-hmm.
It's there. It provides everything you need. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. We've had growing pains. We have a staff of about 165. You have issues that pop up, but He gives you clear guidance.
All right. How about the attacks that come against a business like yours? This will be different than someone who doesn't declare they're conservative or declare they're Christian conservative. How does that happen? How do they come after you in a business like yours?
Oh, daily. When you put the word Christian or God in your business title, it automatically offends many, many folks. I mean, it's crazy. We've had the BBC come in our office and they tried to trap us, and it was kind of funny. She goes, "Well, don't you think this 'In God You Trust' placard is political?" I was like, "No. If you don't like it, take all the money out of your wallet and throw it away, because it's on every bill. It's our country motto. If you don't like it, sorry." And it's not all, it's God.
Right. So then your causes that you support too, you also contribute. That's a little bit different than most companies. Yeah. So tell people about how that evolved. Did you start off doing that?
We did. That was the focus of our business. So going back 10 years ago, I don't know if you want me to get into the details. Yeah. Well, going back 10 years ago, I was working in New York, flying back and forth from Texas to New York every month for a week, maybe 2 weeks back to back. And I just had enough, right? I had babies at the time, a 2, a 5, and a 7-year-old. And all of a sudden, I just decided I needed to be home. So I sold off our shares in the business and basically came home, and we were looking at buying other businesses. This is pretty funny, and it's a God thing. We were coaching football on a football field, youth football, and this guy that I was working with trying to find businesses, he came up and said, "What do you think about starting a cell phone company?" And I was like, "Dude, you have to be out of your gourd." Right. That's the silliest thing I've ever heard. Well, you know what? He came back a week later and he says, "Hey, we're going to target Republicans." I was like, now there's a niche, right? If you have something that's special, you'll walk down this path. Well, here's what ended up happening. We targeted Republicans. We started the business. I found a business out there called Patriot Mobile. At the time, they had donated about $75 million to the progressive causes. And I was like, wow. Okay, there's a there. How do we capitalize on it? We named the business EOS. EOS is the goddess of the new beginning. It's hard to go out and raise capital when you're with Republicans or conservatives and say, what's EOS? It's the goddess. It doesn't fly well.
Right there.
Yeah, we ended up changing the name to Patriot Mobile about 7 years ago, and it's just worked out. At the beginning, the premise of the business was to donate to causes and candidates. Well, we later learned you can't donate to federal candidates, so we don't donate to federal candidates. You can donate to state, but it was not even really candidates. It was causes, right? There are organizations that do things better than we can do. And by supplying them dollars, they can do it better.
Right.
We can't go do it. So that was always a part of the genesis of who we are.
So, but you said something real fast. You can't donate to candidates. You can donate, except state. in this
You
state.
can in Texas.
In Texas.
Yeah.
So you're a business in Texas that actually can get engaged with what's going on in Texas. And I've learned some stuff from meetings that have been in your office about the school systems and things like that. I mean, what is it that people don't know? I mean, like there's a lot they don't know. But I mean, if you had to say there's some things that you really ought to know, what could you tell us about regarding local politics or local schools or local influence?
That's a loaded question. And I've got a good answer. No, find out as much as you humanly can, especially in schools. Now, we uncovered it here during 2020. We uncovered this is a God thing. We have a gal that was really political in the school systems and other places. I had met somebody many years ago. They walked into a store and she was wearing a California jersey. And I said, I hope you don't bring your dead politics here. And she looked at me and she started to laugh. Well, I know what you mean by that. No, we didn't. Fast forward about 5 years ago, my neighbor, we were gone. I was coaching baseball on a field and they call and says, your dog's out. So I was like, okay, I had to turn over my third base spot and I drove home and all these people around my house circling my dog. And I drove up and I opened the door and he ran up and jumped in. Anyway, this guy told me, my neighbor, I didn't know him at the time. She was from Chicago. And I said, okay, that's nice to know. And he goes, I just moved here from California. This is God. And I said to him, I go, I hope you didn't bring your dead bear politics. He looked at me with these eyes. He goes, somebody said that to my mother. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, there was a guy that said that to my mother. She harped about it for weeks. And I said, did that happen at the store? And she goes, yes.
Oh my gosh.
And so fast forward, now this is all happening, right? So we were driving, we went away for summer vacation. We drove up to the South Dakota. We pull home and pull the RV up and I have the boys out washing the RV. And I'm soaked. I have a bucket of soap and we're doing this. Now this is a great story. It's how God works, right? My wife comes out furious, and you know my wife.
Yeah.
And she's articulate, very well educated, and brilliant. She goes, Glenn, we're in trouble. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, look at the language. She picks this up and goes, read this. All this racial stuff and then microaggressions. I said, what are microaggressions? Well, if you look at a kid wrong, it's going on your transcript through college. And I was like, okay, our kids are rednecks. They're not going to be perfect. They're broken just like us. They're going to be thrown out of school. I said, that ain't going to happen. And then she got on further down and all this racial equity stuff. And my friend walks by from California. He's married. They're in a biracial relationship. They have a couple of children. And I walked up. Now, this is crazy. I show it to him. He goes, there's no such thing as that here. Come on. That's most ridiculous. Let me call my mother. She just left. Now, Kathy, if you get to know Kathy, she's mean. I love her to death, but man, she's like this. About a minute later, she skids up, says, Glenn, what the heck's going on here? And I'm like, I'm washing my RV. I don't know. Just let me be. Anyway, so here's what happened. That was on a Tuesday. By Sunday, we had 150 people show up at her house because we broadcast this out along with somebody else. And then we got together 2 weeks later, we raised $250,000 to offset this DEI, diversity education, this nonsense that was in this document. And that was really the genesis of what went on around the country, because the next day, one of my colleagues that runs another PAC and works with us, she was a part of this movement. She was really the mastermind that brought it all together. And the real beauty is we won an election, 2 school board members, 2 school board, 2 city council, and the mayor. We won that.
Okay, I'm going to interrupt this segment right now to ask an important question because this is on my mind and I want to make sure I get it in the interview. You support all kinds of different causes. And tell me a little bit about what causes do you support? How much money do you put into this?
Well, over the last few years, it's $4, $5, $6 million. We'll do $2 million this year. And it aligns with one of our four pillars: First Amendment, Second Amendment, right to life, military, and first responders. So anything that we donate is something that supports that one of those pillars.
And that's the reason why Patriot Mobile is popular. That's why all my friends are so enthusiastic about this. I want you all to think about where you're putting your money when it comes to your cell phone. I guarantee millions of dollars aren't going to the First Amendment or the Second Amendment or to your Christian values. If you're like me, you're going to want to make a change right now. You go to patriotmobile.com/Lance. Use the code Lance, and Patriot Mobile will give you a free activation and walk you through the process so that from now on, your cell phone is going to use your money to work for you instead of against you. I encourage you to do that. patriotmobile.com/Lance. And let's get back into the show. We're interviewing Glenn Story, the CEO of Patriot Mobile, and I'm asking him about how we got started in this, and it's kind of an interesting background story, but you left us right before we took a break with the effect of that brief mobilizing, just as a regular citizen, not even as a CEO, just as a, hey, what does this mean? And you said that how many, you had a mayor election, or what was happening?
It was 5. It was 2 city council members, 2 school board members, and a mayor. And it was all through the efforts of about 300 folks that all kind of came together in different ways. And we ended up really winning that. It was a landslide, right?
Wow. How long ago was this?
That was 2020.
2020. And so, and there was, and who were you working with? It was Lee, right?
Lee Wamsgans. She founded the South Lake Families PAC, and she works with Patriot Mobile as well. She runs our Patriot Mobile Action PAC, which now has a broader reach across Texas. I think we won 11 school board seats, 100,000 kids were going to school under a conservative school board. That was 2 cycles ago. In the last cycle, I think we supported 18 candidates and 12 won.
My gosh.
God's blessed the business, because all you want to do is help open the eyes of parents. This is what's really going on in school. We want you to teach reading, writing, arithmetic. We don't need to talk about this other nonsense that's going on.
And you have I would say that the response you have in Texas is not that much different than the response you'll have anywhere, because I don't think parents are really into trying to make Marxists out of their kids. Now I got Mercedes Sparks with me here, and Mercedes is involved with some activism. She's got like a magazine for how citizens can get engaged. Mercedes, what would your question be here for Glenn?
Well, I don't know if I have a question as much as I just have a statement that it's like, I think this is what activism, grassroots activism looks like for local business owners, from small, medium-sized, large business owners, and you see the results, that God's blessing it. And I don't know if you mentioned it, because I've been over here kind of taking notes too, but you know, Texas passed that law that you could put "In God We Trust" in all the classrooms. And I feel like, Glenn, you guys went and donated all of these signs and put them into different schools. And so I think, again, it's just a case in point is what everyday activism looks like, and how we should all be involved. We should all be moving towards a place of influence and bringing God into every sphere. So, I mean, Glenn, tell that story, because that's a great story too.
Yeah, amen. Great question. And that "In God We Trust" plaque, we know Brian Hughes out in Tyler, Texas. I love him. He's a great senator. He brought this. When we saw it, we knew it was going to happen. So we ended up, I think Hobby Lobby gave us the frames. We paid 20 cents on the dollar for thousands of frames, and we ended up printing those and giving them to schools across the state of Texas. Let me tell you, that created a huge, huge uproar. And I think they did the rainbow "In God We Trust," and then we did "In Allah We Trust." That's not what the law says. The law says, "In God We Trust," under this design, and that's where, and if you hand it to an administrator at the school, they have to put it in a very obvious place. And it works so well. It was cool, actually. And that created quite an uproar.
Mm-hmm.
You are, though, I think you're like the poster child, you and Mike Lindell and just a couple of other CEOs that I know of, have been intentional about figuring out a way to run a business that supports and integrates with your values, and your faith. What would you tell? Do you talk to CEOs that are quizzical about what you do, or how do you encourage them to not be afraid? But of course, you picked the niche. To be honest, you picked a conservative, and then evangelicals are obviously conservatives. So you did pick a niche that clearly would resonate with a marketing plan. But I don't think that's the only reason why you're successful. I think it's because you wanted to be able to live a life that puts your faith and your ideas and your business all in the same script. And what do you say to CEOs that are conflicted about how to be bold or what to do?
You're not going to please everyone. And if you know that that's going to be the outcome, it doesn't matter. You're pleasing him. And it's good to be bold. It's good to stand on a street corner and say, this is who we are as a group. And I do believe that God looks at that and says, okay, we're going to help. He's going to be behind us. Or we're behind him. He's not behind us.
Right.
We're behind him. And when you do that, it gives you extra courage to stand up and do the right things. Because, look, we know the end of the game, right? There's just no debate about that. Is it going to be easy? No, not necessarily. However, when you put him first in your business, all of a sudden something comes. You've been to our office.
Yeah.
You feel the warmth.
Sure.
I guarantee you go into 98% of the businesses here, you don't feel that. And I have people tell me all the time, Raphael Cruz comes in and does a Bible study every Wednesday. You feel him moving. And what is the scripture tells us, when two or more are gathered in his name, he is with you.
There he is in the midst.
How about that? So I get to speak at CPAC. I'll get to speak at Turning Point USA, and I talk about our faith. And if you put him first in your life, he's going to grant you greater rewards than you could imagine.
What do you say to people that are critical of Christians being involved? It's so odd. I mean, it's so strange. But being involved with a political world. I mean, they got movies coming out now. They got hit pieces that I get hit with constantly, and I have to finally address it, because it's getting to the point where there has to be more of a pushback on it. But what do you say when people say, "Well, I don't think as a Christian you should be getting involved with politics"?
Read the Mayflower Compact. Go pick up the Constitution. We the people are granted inalienable rights by our Creator. I won't go through the whole thing. Politics is downstream from religion, in my opinion.
Right.
Politics and religion, or your belief in Christ or in God, go hand in hand, because it is your moral compass. And politics are clearly a moral issue today, right?
Right.
I mean, life. Jeremiah 1:5, I knew you before you were in the womb. I knew you in the womb. That's scripture.
Right.
It isn't my place to take life. It's not my place to vote in. It's not a choice. Now, I'm not going to argue whether life, I know when life starts. It started before conception. But this debate about a 40-week-old baby being aborted, that's not anything that I believe. Now, we're not talking abortion, but that's politics.
Right.
That is not a political debate, yet it has been made politics. And that's our moral fiber, we know right from wrong.
You know, Billy Graham was the one, I think, that had predicted years ago that a revival would come to America, and he really expected to come, maybe not from pulpits, but from the marketplace. And what I'm noticing is that God is raising up more people outside of the church that are, I mean, you take a look at someone like Tucker Carlson, who is kind of like, he's Episcopalian, but he's kind of like I was Episcopalian. He's on a fast track to really constantly affirming things that put you right in the middle of an evangelical awakening. God's using the marketplace, I think, to shape America, dare I say, more than the church. You look at Elon Musk taking over Twitter, then Tucker being on, X, the new platform. We're on War Room here, or right before War Room on Real America's Voice. All the platforms that are there. Charlie Kirk. What do you see? Do you see the signs of an awakening in America that's beginning, or how is the landscape changing over the last 5 years from your perspective?
I'm going to say I unequivocally see a change. I'll never forget it. Was a couple of years ago, I was standing at TPUSA, and I'm usually not at a loss for words. I'm just not. And I walked out on stage and I said to the kids that were out there, I said, you will be the greatest generation. And I said, there's a reason. You're here. This place is full. And you've got to overcome more than one enemy. My dad was a World War II vet, right? He was in the Army, made it through his tours of duty, re-enlisted because all of his town were either deceased or overseas fighting, re-enlisted in the Navy. Here's the story. That was the greatest generation that ever happened, ever in the world's history. You know, from the 40s to the 80s, the economic prosperity, et cetera. And I looked at these kids, I said, you guys are going to be better. You know why you're going to be better? Because you not only have a foreign enemy, you have domestic enemies, and that's your school boards. They want you to not learn about God. They want you to not understand what's going on. And when we come through this, we're going to be a better country. And I mean, the crowd was just crazy. I never speak and people applaud because remember, I'm a CPA, not a gift of gab, but you know what? It was amazing because it was heartfelt. And so I know without a doubt, there's a movement that you can't calculate. You can't print votes to vote somebody out and stop this, because I believe it's God. It's God's movement.
It's a God-ordained awakening. Well, we only got 1 minute and 30 seconds. Mercedes, you always contribute something. Do you have a question you want to ask Glenn while we got him here?
No, I think that this is what I think your success is also measured by, not just putting God first, but a stand in boldness. And I think in a day and an age, there's a lot of middle America, a lot of conservative people that are looking for leadership, like what your company's offering, like Patriot Mobile's offering. And like what Lance brings to the table is that we're looking for truth tellers. And I just applaud you for everything that you've done and will continue to do. So I'm really excited about it.
But it's not just that, but Glenn, you guys got to know this. I live down here in Dallas, so I'm near where his home base is. And it seems like constantly, there's a stream of great national leaders that thread their way through you. Now, I don't know, there's various reasons I could think that's true, but I mean, you're not only running the business, you're an advocate pretty much for every on-fire, patriot, conservative influencer that I know. I mean, you do that. And did you envision this as being part of your calling when you were starting this business, or is this something which you kind of realized, man, I'm a platform for people?
It's a lot bigger than I ever envisioned. It's kind of funny, and nobody laugh, please, but we thought about naming it Ted Cruz Mobile. So we had an idea. We love Ted, my business partner and chairman of our business, went to school with him. But this is a much, much bigger than just Ted. I mean, Ted's the greatest senator here. Mike Lee, you can name down the list of the 4 or 5 guys. We do everything we can to help them. But this is much bigger. It's
what was your first company called? Area? What was it?
EOS. EOS.
Which is a goddess.
The goddess.
I got to say, you have to be,
my goodness.
You must be led by God, but because between EOS or Ted Cruz, you certainly picked the right one, Patriot Mobile. And so listen, folks, if you are interested in Patriot Mobile and what it does, and I want to tell you this because I think it's part of God's strategy to push back on the woke, compromised American culture, to create competing companies that rise up. This is why we talk about Public Square and we always support Mike Lindell with MyPillow, but this company is in the cell phone space. And if you're interested in being able to put your money where Christians and conservatives benefit, because a percentage of this man's company goes to fund the causes you care about, go to lancewallnau.com/Patriot Mobile. Lance Wallnau, WALLNAU for you on the podcast, .com/Patriot Mobile. And when you use the promo code LANCE, LANCE, they will give you free activation. They'll pick up the contract wherever you're at with your present cell phone provider, and you can make the transition without any interruption in service. And I think it's a brilliant way of competing with a system that needs competition. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you for
stopping by
having
the
me.
studio. I hope you come back again in the future. And we're going to sign off now. Don't miss tomorrow's broadcast.
Did you enjoy this latest episode? Please remember to share it with your friends, because the more knowledge you have, the better equipped you are to navigate the world.